you're possibly reaching a little bit of a burnout state, trying to avoid that as much as possible. But that happens over time. I have faced burnout a few times in my career already, and it does completely stop me from functioning and working. So through those experiences, I've definitely come out the other side, trying my hardest to maintain my mental and physical health as much as possible. It's just really hard in cyber. A lot of challenges we're facing on a day to day, trying to see the fun side of cyber as much as possible, but ultimately we have a lot of responsibilities, so it can be quite taxing. But like I say, taking the moments, going for that walk, listening to a podcast, reading a book, going to the cinema or the theatre, having a hobby. Maybe you like to play tennis or maybe
Yeah.
basketball or football, whatever you like to do in your downtime, just trying to pencil in an hour or two a week. If you're like me and you work all the time, you've got an hour or two. If I can
Yeah.
do it, you can do it. You've got the time, you can make it. And for people listening who have children, have families, just switching off at
Yeah.
5:36 some evening
Yeah.
of the week, not checking your emails in the evening again. I know that that can be really hard, but trying to be present as much as possible if you can. But again, everyone is different and everybody's lifestyles are very different now since COVID. Work life is completely different, not necessarily being in the office 5 days a week, but working from home. That changes the dynamic because you end up doing possibly household chores or pickup
Yeah.
when you're at home because it's easy, it's convenient. So that changes. Well, if I'm doing that in the afternoon, maybe I can then work a little bit more in the evening. So it will switch around as
Yeah.
you need it to. I mean, what do you think?
When you were saying all these things, I mean, when you were basically mentioning your day and how do you basically, what is your approach towards your professional and personal life? I was like, okay, because I don't know, Alex, but it's like my schedule is very similar to yours. And I was basically, yeah, it just, the concept is not made for me because I do things on my own time. And like, so this is the time, I chose my this week is entire, like, entirely free. So I have to, so I actually, I kind of, agree with what you just said. But you also mentioned that, everybody has different responsibilities and they have got, different goals out of their lives and they have got
Yeah,
children, family. Of course, one has to work life, has changed. People are now, working either hybrid or remote, so basically,
mm,
they have to figure these things, out, as they go. So,
mm,
yeah, I 100% agree, I completely agree with your point that you basically, you have to, draw lines, especially, somewhere, like, you just, said that, okay, again, it is hard because, your phone, it just, keeps sending you notification. It's hard to basically completely switch off. But again, try
yeah.
and, uh, check your emails during, after 5 or 5:30.
It's doing what's right for you. As you mentioned, and as I mentioned, everybody's lifestyles are different. If you just want to go to work and do your job, that's absolutely
Yeah,
fine. If you 9 to 5, what's wrong with that? I don't see
yeah, yeah,
anything wrong with that. It's absolutely fine. If you want to get promoted a bit earlier, move up the ranks a bit earlier, you want to invest in yourself and educate and upskill, you could still possibly do all of those things in a 9 to 5. I'm not saying, and I'm not discouraging anybody. You can do anything you want, you just have to have the self belief. And like I say, everyone's lifestyles are different. For me, I know that I just don't have enough hours in the day. If I'm honest, if I were to stick to a 9 to 5, I'm losing out on a big chunk of my to-do list per week. I could
yeah,
see that now taking place. I'd be saying no to meetings. I wouldn't be attending that webinar. I wouldn't be going to that event. I wouldn't be taking that course online if I were just to
yeah,
stick to that nine to
yeah,
five. So for me, it's not going to work out because I've got certain goals that I need to reach in the
yeah,
next 6 to 12 months.
yeah,
So it's making a mental note of where you are, where you want to be, and prioritizing what's going to get you there. But as I keep saying, lifestyles are different. Everybody's responsibilities are different. I don't have a family right now. So for me, I can just go all in. Whereas for some people, they have pickup, they've got children, they want to spend time
yeah,
with their partner. That is absolutely
yeah,
fantastic, and complete kudos to everyone who is like that. So yeah, it's just making a mental note of, like I say, where you are, where you want to be. Maybe it'll take you a little bit longer to get there if you do have other responsibilities. But then, as we mentioned, getting a mentor,
yeah,
getting a coach, sitting down with your manager at work or your team and saying and asking for help. Well, how do I get here, but I only have X amounts of hours to do it?
Yeah. Yeah. So while we are on the subject of basically, talking about 9 to 5, I know that you coach professionals as well. So my next question is, what strategies, because we were just talking about things are different, for professionals, and especially if they have family as well, and they would want to do a couple of things. So what strategies, do you recommend for professionals to prevent or recover from burnout, because they want to do so many things, they have got a lot on their plate. So what do you recommend? What strategy should they? Yeah.
I would definitely say working out. One thing I do sometimes with people that I'm coaching is we just do a kind of, we write your name in the middle of a piece of paper and we just work out, okay, what are your priorities? Family, friends, travel, work, and just mind map all of those key categories to really build that picture of who you are, where you are in life, who are the core people that you have around you. And then again, the skills aspect. So where do you want to go? Do you want to get promoted? Do you want to find a new job? Are you happy to relocate? What kind of salary do you want? It's all of these many factors that come into play as well. So doing that helps kind of put together a plan that could potentially help you avoid burnout in terms of not trying to complete 10 certifications or 10 courses within 3 months. I'm not saying never say never, but dialing it down a bit and
Dialing it down.
recognizing you do have time. As I say, working out the skills that you have. What will it take to get you to the next phase? Do you need to take a course, or do you need to gain some type of certification to get promoted? How can we get you there? Is it something that your company can advocate for, can help you along the way? Or if you're wanting to move companies and relocate, maybe you'll have to invest personally. Can you do that? So it's trying to remove the stress of life and the stress of every day and put it into these little boxes to build this
Yeah.
overall picture, which can ultimately help you then build that roadmap. Here is where I am. This is where I want to be in 3 months' time, 6 months' time, 12 months' time, and just setting really purposeful goals, not trying to achieve everything, like I say, in the space of 3 months, trying to take all of these courses because you want that promotion right now. You can
Right. Right.
have that promotion, but let's do it the right way. Let's take one course or two courses. Let's gain the certification that is going to get you that promotion. But then it's also having conversations. If you're staying in your company, having conversations with your manager, or if you're wanting to move companies, talking to people that are possibly already at that company or already in the role that you want to be, and gaining feedback and gaining recommendations off them as well. So strategies, it goes back to what I said right at the beginning, just really getting comfortable with who you are. What are your core competencies, your skills? What can you offer out? Your talents, building that confidence, building that self-esteem. And then after that, putting into boxes family, friends, travel, career. It sounds a little bit strange saying boxes, but just categorizing your life in a way that's fun and lighthearted, starting to put goals into action and then actioning them and saying, okay, here is where I am, this is where I want to be, this is the roadmap, this is how I'm going to get there. And that takes time and it can take a few sessions to do that. But afterwards, if somebody came to me and said, I want to work at this company or I want to work in this field, but I know in order to get there, I need to become really good at communicating. So
Yeah.
I want to work on my public speaking. And that's
Yeah.
what they come to me and say, okay, I know that public speaking, building up their communication style is what we're going to focus on. So I start
Yeah.
helping them with that and giving
Yeah.
them strategies for public speaking and how they can build that up. But it's all a process and it really is a journey and it's just not an overnight.
Yeah.
You can completely shift your ways of thinking, I would say maybe over 12 months or a couple of years to really see progress.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen straight away. It's got to come from you internally and constantly wanting to work on yourself and better yourself. That's why I always say to people, what are you doing outside of your job? What do you do on your weekends? How do you spend your time? Because if you want to go that bit further, what are you listening to? Podcasts, webinars, what are you attending? What are you reading? All of this has such an impact on
True.
your progression and where you're going to be this time next year. They always say the work that you put in today will impact this time next year.
Impact.
So it's what are you doing now that's going to get you there? And they're really hard conversations. And that's why I say everybody's lifestyle is really different because there's some people who just don't want to do it. They don't want
Yeah,
to do that. And that's fantastic. That's fine. You will find meaning and you will find purpose in every aspect of your life. You could be a
yeah,
person who really values family, really values your friendships, really values your personal life and you want to invest all of your time in
yeah,
that, fantastic. And then you have other people who it's the professional life, they want the career, they want the promotion, they want to be that person. Again, fantastic. So it always comes back to
yeah,
and yourself, liking who you're becoming, liking who you are, drowning out the noise and focusing on that.
yeah. True, true. So basically, of course, I 100% with what you just said, that things do not happen overnight. So for professionals, whatever goals you have to basically break down your goals into short-term goals,
Mini goals, yeah.
key goals, and then start working towards those goals. So basically, for example, do not try and sign up for a plethora of courses at the same time, because you will not be able to do complete those courses anyway. So
It's
try and do, one course at a time, take it slow and keep doing it, because it's a lifelong process in terms of, not a lifelong, yeah, of course, it's a learning is a lifelong process. But if we talk about, professionals who want to go further in their career, then you would want them to, yeah, basically, yeah.
Because if you take an example of running, for example, I've been running for 5 years. I started running in COVID, I think, as many people did to get out of the house as much as they
Yeah.
possibly could. So I started running in COVID. It's 5 years later. I run every single day of the week, Monday to Sunday, with no breaks. I could never do that at the beginning of my running journey. I think I was running. I ended up getting shin splints, which, if you've had that, it's the most excruciating pain you can ever have from running, and it's because you do too much too soon. And for me, I'm very much just in any situation, I just go all in, see what happens. So I overdid it with the running to begin with. I thought I could run a marathon and I could barely do okay. But running is a really good example. And in the beginning, you possibly run 2 or 3 times a week. You really build up your stamina and your strength. You do weights alongside running, possibly, but your Couch to 5K, which is the app you can download, or Couch to 10K, they're really good starting points for running because you've got a goal in mind. You want to run a 5K. You've got the goal in mind, I want to run a 10K next, and then I want to do a half marathon, and then I want to
Yeah,
finally reach that marathon. So maybe the first 3 months you do the 5K, maybe 6 months you do the 10K, and then maybe the last 6 months you're training to do the half marathon to the marathon. So you can see that's 12 months of running just to kind of get you to the point where you could do a marathon if you wanted. And it's not to say with the correct and right training, you could maybe half that and do 6 months of training and you could do a marathon. But if you really wanted to take it step by step, that could be your trajectory for the running. So apply that to your career. If you wanted to get a promotion to go to the next level or a couple of levels up, or even starting out cybersecurity early careers, if you were coming in as an analyst, but you knew or you want to be a leader, that's your mission,
yeah,
that's your goal, that's what you want in the next few years' time, you could start applying that straight away. So, speaking to people in leadership positions, having a virtual coffee with them, asking to be challenged at work, so being put on more stimulating projects over
yeah,
time. And then slowly but surely you're building up this skill set without you even really putting too much emphasis on it to begin with. And within 12 months, you're in a completely different position as you started. And maybe you get promoted a couple of levels up. And
yeah,
because you've removed the mental barriers and you've removed the stress and the anxiety of saying, well, I've got to get there. Well, I want to be a leader, so I need to do it now. Because you've removed that,
yeah.
you'll get there quicker. When you get out of your own way, I think is the right phrase. And when you just say, well, I know I'm going to get there. I'm not sure exactly when. Maybe it's 12 months, maybe it's in a couple of years, but I know I'm going to be that person.
Yeah.
So you start mentally getting yourself there, and then you start putting goals into action. And before you know it, you're a leader, or you're running that marathon and you've made it. And then what do you do after that? You run another marathon. You
Yeah.
become an even better leader because it's
Yeah.
constantly upskilling and constantly educating yourself. So you're never done. You have a goal, you reach it, and then you're on to the next.
So basically, putting effort into not into upskilling yourself, but also contacting the right people, getting mentored.
Putting putting effort in, but not overwhelming yourself is really
Yeah.
key. With too much information, too many courses, thinking you need to have achieved all of this on day one. But definitely the outreach piece, as I say, if you know that you want to be a leader, speaking to people in leadership positions, contacting them on LinkedIn, possibly if they're in your workplace, dropping them a message. Can I sit down with you for 20 minutes, 30 minutes? Can we block some time out? I just want to hear your story. So, not actually pitching yourself and saying, well, I want to be in your position in 2, 3 years' time, but tell me your story. How did you get to where you got to? And actually, you might be able to resonate with a couple of points that they're making, because ironically, in cyber, having listened to many stories from leaders myself, we all, when you think about untraditional routes in, we're all straddling the same pathways in a sense. We've faced challenges, we've overcome them, we've remained humble, there's no egos in the room, we're willing to continue to learn off others, and then as soon as we're in the positions that we are, we want to mentor, we want to give back to the
Yeah.
community.
Yeah.
So you often find, even right at the beginning of your journey, you'll still be able to relate to people further along, because we're all hopefully churning the same wheel and have similar mindsets, which I think we very much do. And I'm always enamored by people in cyber. It's definitely it's a fantastic place to be. So yeah, definitely the outreach piece, I would say, if you can, and that will help with your confidence and help with your communication and help with your public speaking and how you want to come across and be perceived. Just by being in rooms with people in authoritative positions can help you understand how to come across the same way.
Yeah. True that. So that brings us to my last question, which is what advice, would you give to individuals, aspiring to enter the cybersecurity field today? Because again, like you mentioned in the call, that how, due to technology, as technology has evolved, the cybersecurity industry has also evolved and has become demanding. So what advice would you give to aspiring people, basically looking to enter the industry?
I would say be curious is one of the words that I love. Be very curious about the industry. Know that you can have a very fruitful career in cybersecurity. It's a lot of work. It can be challenging, but there's room for growth, definitely. The role that you enter the industry with might not necessarily be the one that you stay in. You can pivot to different roles in cybersecurity. There's a lot of options. There's a lot of opportunity. There are a lot of people around you, like-minded individuals that you can lean on, that you can learn from. There's a real sense of community in cyber, which I love. So I would say entering into the industry now, you're at the best time, if I'm honest. We're off the back of COVID 5 years ago now. It really feels as though we're entering a new dawn cross industry, not just cybersecurity. It feels very modern. There's a lot of initiatives taking place in the mentoring and coaching space, but just in the event space, being able to go and speak
Yeah,
to people again, meet
yeah,
up, whether virtual or offline. So there's just so much room to explore the industry before you're entering fully into it, to really get to grips with, is this the right place for me? Will I be happy? Having those key conversations with, like I say, people possibly in leadership or those that have just entered the industry before you, companies, deciding where you'd like to work, what field that is in. Is it with a startup or a vendor or consultancy? what would you like to do, what would you like that role to be, but never underestimate that depending on your skills, what's to say a role couldn't be created for you. That's something that
Yeah.
I'm advocating for now. We're getting a lot of fresh talent in, people with bright ideas, big personalities. Maybe they don't fit the mold of the roles that we have right now. So what's to say that we couldn't create roles for them? And as we said before, the way AI is going, possibly removing the need for certain early careers, that entry level, now is the time to maybe for us to figure out, well, what does that career framework look like? And actually, could we start implementing change earlier on? So I'd say coming in now, you're at the right time, change is happening, but it's exciting, remain curious, outreach, speak to people, never underestimate that, but never underestimate your potential. If you want to be here, you can have a lifelong career. You can pivot across and look forward to seeing you, hopefully.
Sure. So change is good and stay curious, reach out to the right people. These are the advice, that you would like to give to young professionals, aspiring professionals. Okay, so that was the end of our podcast. Thank you so much, Alex. Thank you for sharing your inspiring journey and some useful insight into cybersecurity threat, cybersecurity threat, as an industry, and the challenges and how we can overcome those. How can an organization, can tackle those challenges, and not only that, your own personal journey, which was really inspiring. And I really, resonated on so many levels with you. And it was a really fun and engaging conversation. And I'm sure our listeners, will feel the same way. And I am going to, add in your CTA so they can, contact you directly. Thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
so much for having me. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.